the last 2 years have been a very large spiritual awakening for me. Really became awakened to the spiritual side of life and really what wellness means. And I thought I knew who I was before and was confident, but really so much of my identity was based off of pleasing other people and putting my identity in other people's hands. And the concept, I read a lot of self-help books, did a deep discovery on all those things. And the biggest takeaway I was gathering was how vital it is to sit with your feelings and experience them, which again just goes along the concept of don't cry. You're pushing it away rather than doing the opposite, which is how you heal. I was on a very big healing journey 2 years ago, which is how this all really started. And the biggest thing I kept reading was feel your feelings, sit there and let the feeling be in your body, let it flow through you, observe it, don't judge it, let it happen as it needs to happen, let it flow through you. And so that's what I did. And that's what my perspective has changed quite dramatically over even the last couple months. And I sort of look at things this way as someone who very much struggles with anxiety and depression. When I feel very overwhelmed by those things and sort of like I'm being burdened by these things, I like to think of it as if I started out as this celestial being, this just energy, and the universe or God or whomever said, hey, do you want to go to Earth for an incredibly short amount of time, like a blip, and experience every emotion that you could possibly feel as a human? You get to have all these experiences: love, heartache, anxiety, joy, euphoria, whatever, all of it. Do you want to do that? Yeah, I do. And so when I am feeling these intense feelings, it's sort of like a reality check to step outside and say, although this is a very uncomfortable, painful feeling, it's quite beautiful that I have the capacity to experience it. Just in general, like I am so lucky to feel to the extent that I feel and to feel as deeply as I feel, because it can often feel like a curse when you're having heartache. And when you're experiencing love, it's absolutely euphoric. And then when it's the opposite, it's a curse. And so understanding that both of those exist in the same timeline and in the same life, and that is sort of something that I use to ground myself when I am stuck in a feeling of darkness.
That is probably the best description of that I've heard before. Oh. The idea of if we were given the choice to have this diverse set of emotions, experiences, feelings, and what you rightly said was that if you're experiencing loss, mm-hmm. it means you've experienced love.
Yeah.
And if you've experienced pain, it means you've experienced joy.
Yeah.
It actually means that you've had the fortune of receiving a glimpse of greatness.
Yeah.
And I lost my mentor to stage 4 brain cancer. Mm. And I lost him a few years before that because of how brain cancer works, in the sense that he wasn't
mentally
there, even though he was spiritually there.
Yeah.
And what I always referred to him as, which I found fascinating, was, so when someone has stage 4 brain cancer, obviously they start to lose aspects of their memory, they start to lose aspects of identity, and his memory became so short. He had long-term memory and he lost his short-term memory. So if he'd see me, he'd be like, hey Jay, how's it going? And then 30 seconds later, he'd be like, hey Jay, how's it going? As if he'd just seen me.
Wow.
So he'd still know I'm Jay and he'd still remember our relationship for many, many years. But in the moment, you couldn't have attention. But what I found fascinating was that all he did was thank people for their service to God.
Oh, wow.
So all he'd do if he saw you, and he was a community leader, he was a priest in his own right, and if he saw you, he'd be like, thank you for what you're doing for others. Thank you for your service.
Wow.
And I was like, how special was that? That
Wow.
was his broken loop, was gratitude.
That's the most wholesome thing I've ever heard.
Literally. And to experience that was just unbelievable. And it's what you're saying, that yes, I miss him. And yes, of course, I wish he was there. I feel like calling him up every day to tell him what I'm doing and different things that happen in my life. But the fact that I can experience that I miss someone means that I just had something really special.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that makes it easy. I'm saying that it reaffirms the point that you're making, that we're fortunate to have both experiences because they only come together.
Yeah. And I do think no one really talks about how people leave your life. You know what death is, you know people are going to die, but you don't really, until I think you're in your 20s, honestly, experience how often people come and go just in general. And it's loss. It is grief. It's not death, but it's loss, and how profound of a feeling that is. And I almost wish, and I don't know what this looks like or what the teachings look like or what the advice is, but just that there could be more of a conversation of when you are growing up, like, people are going to come and go, and let's find ways to accept that, because I think the last 2 years I've had what feels like a revolving door of people in my life, new people that I've tried to make connections with, and then they leave, or people that I've been maybe not make a connection with, so there never really is one, and then the relationship kind of just ends. But you know, there have been obviously meaningful relationships that come in and then they end. And so it's weird because you are going on this journey of loss and grief, but it's not death, and the person still exists, and they have their own conscious mind that you're sort of trying to figure out, well, how are they experiencing this? Because in death, the person's just gone, and you can think whatever thoughts you have, and they're yours, and no one can take those away from you. Whereas when someone leaves your life and they're still around, it's like, oh, there's two sides to this story, and what is this person's experience? And I just think that's like a very interesting concept, is how do you deal with the loss of someone who's still around.
Yeah. Especially when we've been trained in society to believe that length of time equals success.
Yeah, or that's the measure of love.
Correct. Yeah, that the measure of love, the measure of success is
importance,
longevity, length. We know plenty of people that have been in a job for 25 years that they hate.
Yeah.
Or have been in a relationship for 15 years that they don't love.
Right.
And you constantly find that. But also what you're saying, I think more deeply, the idea that we actually deal with coming and going and the seasons of relationships far more. Mm-hmm. And it's like, we know that when it's winter, you put on a coat.
Right.
And we know when it's summer, you get to put your shorts on. And when it's spring, you may carry, if you're in London especially, you carry an umbrella.
Right,
and if it's fall, you get to wear fall colors. Like, it's like with the seasons of nature, we know how to adapt our clothing, our preparation.
But not with the seasons of life.
Absolutely. It just doesn't happen. Like you don't ever talk about the winter of life.
No.
Is what you're saying. If you talk about loss or death or grief as the winter of life.
Yeah.
You don't ever talk about it, and then you're unprepared.
Yeah.
It's almost
I feel very ill-equipped. Genuinely. And as I've been in the last 2 years dealing with so much of it, I'm like, there's got to be some solutions out here. There's got to be people who are talking about it, because I know I'm, not the only woman in their 20s who's going through cycles of relationships and meeting new people, and then having those people leave, or me choosing to leave. So it's like, come on, guys, let's rally and brainstorm and be there for each other, because I don't want to turn to Google and read stupid articles that tell me that when someone leaves your life, you should go on a hike. Because if someone tells me to go on a hike one more time, I'm like, okay. This is what people say. They say, when someone leaves your life, when you're going through something, pick up a new hobby. okay, sure, I'll do that. And that'll take up 3 seconds of my time and probably like $400 to buy all this equipment for this new hobby, whatever it is. Maybe I'll try crocheting. And, you know, all of a sudden I'm spending $300 on all these things and it lasts 2 seconds. It's like, there's gotta be, what else can I be doing?
Yeah.
So what I'm personally been dealing with is the struggle of, what is my identity outside of everything else? What is my identity outside of everyone else? So just me, and outside of work, because I'm a workaholic. And since I was a kid, as a survival, as a coping mechanism, had to basically make acting my identity to push me out of the situations that I was in and launch me into my career. So I feel that I have been in fight or flight mode for most of my life. And what that has done to my brain and my body, my mental well-being, is, if I continue at this rate, catastrophic. I will lose my brain power. There's no way. Humans are not meant to continue living in that state of your adrenaline is always going, just that fight or flight response. And I'm basically on this journey right now in my life of trying to calm that down and trying to just simply exist and sit in stillness without feeling like I need to fill a void. And that is the biggest, that has been like waking up with anxiety. I'm not working this summer. I'm not filming anything. I'm promoting my movie. Very thankful for that. I have my own production company, so I'm doing I do a lot of Zooms. I do all the things, but there are days where I have nothing to do.
That's amazing.
Well, that's the challenge, is where I'm thinking, what do I do with myself? Because I have been programmed to constantly go.
Pick up a new hobby, go on a hike.
Yeah. Let me do that. I'm going to do that.
Come on.
Besides that, I'm like, how do I find serenity and acceptance and peace without running away from myself? Because and I'm stopping myself in these tracks, because the past week I've had such bad anxiety about not working and being bored. The fear of being bored has been haunting me, and I've been thinking, what trips can I go on? Okay, I'm gonna reach out to like literally everyone I know. When are they available? I'm looking at the calendar on my phone going, I'm alone that day, need to fill that up. Like, genuinely, how can I fill my time so I'm not alone? Because loneliness equals my existential crisis thoughts, and I'm going to spiral.
Yeah.
So I am very much on that journey because I know I don't want that. I do not want that. I do not want to be someone who has to fill that void. I pride myself on being someone who will never just succumb to that and be the person who always has to have friends around or always needs to be doing something. I don't want that. That's not the identity that I want. I want to be able to be okay by myself. And that's a really hard thing to do.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, how do you do that?
But even hearing you verbalize and vocalize it is so powerful, right? Like, even to have that as an aspiration is an unbelievable power, because it's a recognition of your true feelings.
Yeah.
Going back to what we were speaking about before, you're actually responding to and listening to how your body, mind, and heart feel. And so you're already making so much progress, because if you weren't listening, then you would be going against the advice that we should be allowed to cry and we should be allowed to do this. And so you're saying, well, I just need to take the next 3 months or however long it is off, because that's what I'm feeling I need. And even if you don't know yet what that looks like, you're still deeply responding to that need. And so I think there's a real power in that, because identifying it is one thing, then implementing it, which you are, is another thing.
Yeah.
And then, as you said, building your identity as this new identity is almost like step 3.